Hi student, we are back. So following our first section, we mentioned nature disaster may lead to different types of war and people will fight for resources. However, in our reading, there is a major shift starting from 17th century. Like the modern country exists at that time, and some politician and some country think that war is not just a nature disaster or fighting for resources. They think war can be used as a tool in their politics, in doing some international discussion or doing some trade or when they have some different ideas about how the things to be done.
So with the birth of the modern nations, then most of countries, or we will see peoples over there, have formed the ideas of nationalism, which means they want to be independent or form their own country around the same period of time. So as we can see, lots of countries in Europe wanted to declare their independence, and that led to lots of chaos or fights or wars in following centuries, and that's a major reason we had the First World War and the Second World War as well. They both started in Europe because lots of countries are still trying to establish itself or themselves as an independent country until now.
Yeah, and Ginny just mentioned a very big term called World War. And student, you probably learned it in your history, like World War I and World War II, actually a very big term. There are lots of reasons. It's a very complicated term when you think about the cause of these two big world war. But nationalism is actually a major factor. And nationalism also caused a lot of war after the two big world war, like the Vietnam War, also related to nationalism because people want to be independent. They don't want to be colonized by other country. So would you like to give more explanation or examples of that?
So we talk about the different reasons that led to war. So actually the fourth reasons we mentioned in our dialogue say that, well, one country may want to support another country in its fight against an enemy. And that's what happened in Europe in the 19th and in the 20th century. Because different powers, they would like to form an alliance with other countries. And they are trying to expand their territories, well, either in the Europe or in their other colonized regions like in Africa or in Asia, in other places. So they are both fighting, trying to get the upper hand, to get a better control of more land, actually more resources. That's the reason. So I guess that's what led into the First World War, because different countries in Europe trying to get a better hands of the resources. So the main powers in Europe are fighting against each other, particularly German. Well, we didn't call that
German. But they are not German at that time. And the other part is from Russia.
Yes.
But again, that time their name is not the same as the modern name. But thank you, Ginny, for mentioning that, because when the modern country exists and they start to form their alliance, so that's why we have big world war. The war becomes so big because that involved more than 5 or even 10 countries.
So I think according to history, more than 100 countries get involved in the First World War, and I think the Second World War is even more horrible than that. So for those countries who get the borders right next to another country, well, those wars, right, it's really difficult to avoid not getting involved because they are neighboring countries. But there are also other countries who really wanted to keep their status quo.
Yeah.
They want to be not to be involved in these wars, right?
Yeah.
At least at the beginning.
Yeah.
So when the First World War started, actually the Britons, the United Kingdom, and also the United States didn't want to be
get
involved
into both the alliance. Yeah.
But later, well, maybe some of their ships or some of their properties are bombed or attacked by those involved countries. So later they get involved in those wars as well. And students, you probably remember that China
was also involved
in the First World War. So recall what happened in China around that time? Well, somehow the Japan Empire decided to participate in the war, and they declared war against then the German Empire then. So they attacked Germans colony
in China.
So which is
a really complicated situation.
Qingdao port. So the Japanese army then took control of that part and declared they won over the German side. So that's how China get involved in the First World War.
And because, just as Jeannie mentioned, those countries, they are like so close to each other, like in Europe. These countries they are neighbors, so it's really hard to try to avoid or not get involved into other people's war. But also, as Jeannie also mentioned, there is also another problem of the colony. Because if you are the colony, like China at that time, a lot of our territory are already occupied by other countries.
Or rented to other countries.
Yeah. And for those part, you will easily get involved into war as well. So that's what happened in our modern country, in our modern society. All these countries are getting harder and harder for being away from the war, and we are going to discuss it later in our third section.
So it's really difficult to keep a country's status quo, even though we really want to get independence from other countries and do not want to get involved in those international business. But I think in the past or now, it's also mission impossible as always.
Yeah, it's always.
So that's our second section of our lecture. Now we got 2 questions regarding to our second section. So our first question is, in which period of time we started to get the idea that government has a right to use war as a logical or political tool for their foreign policy? Please name the time period. So that's our first question.
Yeah, and my second question is, we talk a little bit about World War I, the First World War, and it's a very special example in human history. And as Jeannie mentioned, China was also involved in that war, although we didn't declare the war to other countries. So what happened? Why China was get involved at that time?
Okay, see you.